You know, when we think about protecting credit card data, our minds usually jump straight to things like firewalls, encryption, all the complex tech stuff. But what if this single biggest vulnerability isn't in the code, but sitting in the cubicle right next to you? Okay, let's dive into this, because we're going to talk about the most critical piece of the security puzzle, your people.
So let's just start with a number that should honestly stop you in your tracks. A staggering 95% of all data breaches are tied back to one simple thing: human error. That's right, it's not some super hacker or a faulty server most of the time. Nope, nearly every single breach happens because a person, somewhere, made a mistake. And for small businesses, well, the consequence of that one little mistake is absolutely brutal. 60% of them, 60, close their doors for good within just 6 months of a major data breach. The damage is it's too much to come back from.
The stakes here truly couldn't be higher. We're not talking about some IT headache. We're talking about the actual survival of the business.
A single slip-up can just unleash this cascade of disasters. You're looking at huge fines from the card networks themselves, then crippling legal action that can drag on for years. Of course, sales just plummet as customers get spooked. And maybe worst of all, you're left with completely shattered customer trust, something you might never, ever get back.
So, what's supposed to stop all this from happening? Well, that's where a set of rules known as PCI DSS comes in. Let's quickly break down what this is and, more importantly, why it matters so much. Basically, you can think of PCI DSS as the official rulebook for handling payment card data. If your business touches credit card information in any way, shape, or form, you have to follow these standards. It's the whole framework designed to protect that sensitive data and, cut down on fraud.
And make no mistake, following these rules is not optional. This isn't some best practice or a friendly suggestion you can just ignore. It is the fundamental requirement for being allowed to take card payments. Bottom line, no compliance, no business. Simple as that.
But here's the thing. All that technology, no matter how advanced it is only as strong as the people using it. And that brings up a really critical point.
The real battlefield for your data security, it isn't just in cyberspace. It's in the daily decisions, the small actions, and sometimes the inactions of every single one of your employees.
And this right here reveals a really dangerous gap in thinking. We know people are the biggest risk, but this data shows that about a third of companies still don't see employee training as their #1 defense. They're basically focusing on the wrong threat.
This is why we have to completely reframe how we think about this. Your employees are not a liability you have to manage. They are your most critical security asset. They are your human firewall, the ones who can spot threats that technology might completely miss.
Okay, so how do we actually build this human firewall? Well, it definitely doesn't happen by accident. It takes a deliberate, strategic approach to training that builds a much, much stronger defense.
A really powerful training program can be broken down into 4 key stages. First, you've got to lay the foundation with really clear policies. Then, you have to actively engage your team to make the learning actually mean something. Next, you sharpen their defenses against real-world threats. And finally, you need a system to make sure all that knowledge actually sticks.
And that engage your team step, it's absolutely crucial. Come on, nobody learns anything from a boring lecture they're forced to sit through, right? You have to make it interactive. Phishing simulations, for example, show people what a real attack actually looks and feels like. Role-specific scenarios make it relevant to their day-to-day job. A little gamification can actually make it fun. The goal is to turn training from a chore into a memorable experience.
All right, let's make this personal for a second. Just think about your own team right now. If a really sophisticated phishing email landed in their inbox, one designed specifically to steal credit card info, would they know what to do? Are you sure?
Because the difference here is literally night and day. An untrained employee, they click the link, they become the wide-open front door for an attack. But a trained employee, they spot the red flags, they verify that strange request through a totally separate channel, and they report the threat. One is a massive liability, the other is your last best line of defense.
You see, effective training isn't a one-and-done event you check off a list. It's a continuous cycle. It has to start on day 1 when someone new joins. It's got to be refreshed every year for everyone. And it's constantly reinforced through smaller things like security newsletters or even just simple team reminders. Security has to stay top of mind all year round.
Ultimately, all these training efforts are building towards something way bigger than just checking a compliance box.
The real end goal here is to create a genuine culture of security inside your organization.
And that culture, it absolutely has to start at the top. When leaders are actively involved, when they champion security, everyone else pays attention. It means you're creating an environment where people are actually rewarded for doing the right thing, and, this is huge, where they feel safe reporting a mistake without being blamed for it. It's about weaving security into the very fabric of how you do business every day.
So as we wrap this up, it all comes back to this one simple but really powerful question. When you look at your organization, what do you see? Do you see a group of potential risks, a collection of liabilities just waiting to make a mistake? Or do you see your single greatest asset in protecting your data, your strongest line of defense? The choice and the responsibility to build them up is yours.